My boyfriend's daughter left my kids stranded on the freeway, and it changed everything. It was a typical Wednesday evening at the local community center where our daughters attended dance class. The room buzzed with the latest pop hits, a backdrop to the flurry of leotards and ballet shoes. Amidst the chaos of parents chatting and kids practicing their steps, I first noticed John. He was hard to miss, tall with a friendly smile that seemed permanently etched on his face. He was watching his daughter, Kelly, a 17-year-old with the same easy grin. My daughter Emma, who's 16, had been coming here for years. I'd usually drop her off and head back to pick her up after class. But that day I decided to stay. I found a spot on the bleachers where I had a clear view of the dance floor. Half watching the routines, I was trying to mentally solve a work problem when John sat next to me. "Tough routine they're learning today, huh?" he commented, nodding toward the girls. We struck up a conversation, mostly small talk about our kids and how they were handling school. Turned out we had a lot in common. Both of us were single parents, me, divorced for 5 years from a man who turned out to be less than reliable, and John, a widower who lost his wife to illness 3 years back. There was an ease in talking to him, probably because we both understood the trials of raising a teenager alone. As weeks turned into months, our casual chats became a routine. We'd share coffee after dance class, and sometimes even dinner with the kids. I learned that John worked in IT and had flexible hours, which allowed him to spend a lot of time with Kelly. Meanwhile, I was juggling my job at a marketing firm with being a mom, which meant late nights and a steady diet of takeout dinners. One chilly November evening, over steaming cups of hot chocolate, John brought up the idea of moving in together. "It might be good for the girls," he suggested. "They seem to get along, and it could be easier on us financially." I was taken aback at first. It was a big step, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Both our leases were up for renewal, and the girls did seem to enjoy each other's company, or at least there were no complaints. Deciding to move in together was one thing, actually doing it was another. We spent weeks looking for the right place, somewhere close to both their schools and our jobs. We finally settled on a fixer-upper house in a great neighborhood. The move itself was chaotic. Boxes everywhere, furniture that didn't fit, and a never-ending list of repairs. But it was ours, and it felt like a fresh start. The girls each picked their rooms and excitedly began decorating them. Kelly's room quickly filled with posters of her favorite bands and shelves for her dance trophies. Emma chose a quieter setup, with lots of books and a small desk where she could draw. Watching them make their spaces their own, I felt a sense of accomplishment. Maybe this was going to work out after all. Our first dinner in the new house was a makeshift affair. Pizza on paper plates because the kitchen was still a mess. We sat on the living room floor, laughing and sharing stories about our first disastrous cooking attempts. It was nice, feeling like a family, even if it was unconventional. But as days turned into weeks, it became clear that blending our families would be more challenging than I'd thought. Emma and Kelly were polite to each other, but there was a tension that hadn't been there before. Simple things like whose turn it was to choose the movie or disagreements over chores started to create friction. Living together as a blended family had its share of daily ups and downs. Mornings started well enough, with John whipping up his famous pancakes and bacon. But evenings were a different story. As the novelty wore off, the reality set in, complete with all its complexities. John's parenting style was hands-on and playful, turning chores into games. A method that worked wonders for Kelly but didn't click with Emma. My approach was more structured, leaning on routine to keep things running smoothly, especially with my hectic work schedule. These differing styles occasionally clashed, particularly when enforcing house rules. Dinner times became our battleground for bonding. Some evenings were filled with laughter and stories, while others were so tense you could cut the air with a knife. Once, I tried introducing a no phones at the dinner table rule to encourage more interaction. Kelly thought it was draconian, and even Emma, usually a rule follower, saw it as overkill. John backed me up, but I could tell he was conflicted, not wanting to upset Kelly. Weekends, our supposed time to relax, were hit or miss. Sometimes the girls would get along, laughing like sisters. Other times, they'd barely speak, each glued to their phones or bringing along a friend as a buffer. The K-pop concert was supposed to be a breakthrough, a chance for the girls to bond over something they both loved. Emma had been a fan for years, and when Kelly expressed interest in one of the bands, Emma jumped at the opportunity to share something with her stepsister. The day of the concert, Kelly, who had recently gotten her driver's license, offered to drive them. John thought it was a good step toward responsibility. Despite my apprehension, I agreed. But that evening, my phone rang. It was Emma, her voice trembling. "Mom, you need to come get us," she said. Kelly left with her friend. They just drove off and left us here. They had stopped at a highway restaurant for a quick bite. After an argument about waiting times, Kelly decided not to wait for Emma and her friend. She left them stranded. I was furious and scared. Anything could have happened. John called Kelly, and while he tried to stay composed, his anger was evident. "She's on her way to the concert," he relayed after hanging up. She says it was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? She left them stranded, John. That's not just a misunderstanding. I snapped. After what happened, I called Kelly to address the situation. She hung up on me. John defended her, saying I was overstepping my boundaries as a step-parent. He grounded her, but it didn't feel like enough. I decided I couldn't continue paying for Kelly's dance classes unless they both started taking the situation seriously. This decision was met with resistance. John and his ex accused me of being too harsh, but I stood firm. My daughter's safety had been compromised, and I wasn't willing to brush it off. Over the next month, the strain between John and me grew unbearable. Eventually, I asked him to move out. My daughter admitted that Kelly had been mean to her for a while, taking her things, deleting movies from her laptop, and making her feel unwelcome. Now, John is in the process of moving out. It's been tough, but I'm relieved. My daughter deserves to feel safe and respected in her home, and so do I. I'm focusing on rebuilding our lives one day at a time. I've learned that family isn't just about being under one roof. It's about respect, trust, and standing up for what's right. While it's sad that things ended this way, I know I made the right choice for my daughter and myself.